listening to the Thornapple Valley Church podcast. Thank you for joining us. Our hope is for you to be encouraged and to connect with God during this message. If you'd like to know more about Thornapple Valley Church, visit tvcweb.com.
Okay, so let's start out with a little introspection, all right? Just the opportunity for you to think a little bit. So here's a question about you. This is not about the person next to you. This is about you. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being like bad, really bad, and 10 being like really good, how good are you? How good a person are you? 1 to 10, so 1 is like Hitler, and 10 is like Mother Teresa, like one of those deals. Where are you on that continuum, 1 to 10? What do you think? Don't be humble. Just what do you think? Where are you at, 1 to 10? How good of a person are you? You have a number in mind? And if you do, I know some of you are here alone and you feel uncomfortable with this, but for those who are with somebody turn right now and tell them what your number was. Come on, just turn and tell them what your number was, and then see what they say, all right? I heard that somebody on Thursday night said to the person next to him, I'd come in at a good 1.5, I think. Here's what I think most of us did. Most of us, I think, maybe got some kind of number in our head, and you went, well, maybe I'm a 5, probably a 5 or 6, But when you turn to the person next to you, you probably went like one number lower because you want to be humble. And then they probably said, no, you're better than that. Come on, you're better than, don't be humble. And I think that's what a lot of us did. And whether or not you are one number or the other, who knows? Because this is an entirely subjective thing. It's just our guess at how good we are. What I really want you to think about is to understand that no matter what number, whether it's your humble number or whether it's a number you really think or whether it's a number somebody would apply to you, whatever your number is on the good scale, you are just a heartbeat away from going down several notches. Come on, you are just the right circumstances, the right situation, the right setup, and boom, you drop down a few notches and move into failure. Come on, is that true? Welcome to church. Good morning, everybody. I know some of you are like, that's a bummer, but it's actually a fact, and you know it is. I mean, it really is true. You're always closer to dropping down on the good scale than you might think. And the Bible describes David, who is an Old Testament character, king of Israel. Many of you are familiar with him, wrote many of the Psalms, and much was written about him in the Old Testament. You're familiar with his life, and maybe one of the more memorable stories about him. One night, he's up on the roof of the palace, and he looks across the way, and he sees a woman bathing, and I'm going to make a long story short. We have no idea actually how long this period was that it happened, but he was attracted to her, and so because he's the king and he has that kind of power, he ends up in an affair with her. And then she gets pregnant and lets him know, and because he's the king and has the power, he sees to it that her husband, she was married, by the way, and she's now got a husband who is a soldier. He sees to it that he is killed in battle. In effect, he murders that man. He does it by somebody else, by a different thing, but he murders that man. The Bible describes David as a man after God's own heart, and this is David. This is David. This guy is a mess. And so then this guy who's supposedly after God and after God's heart, the God of David, sends a prophet to him. Because after he had the husband killed, he moves this woman into his palace and she becomes his wife, and he just goes on about his business. But God sends a guy named Nathan, who is a prophet, to him. And I want you to see this. This is found in 2 Samuel chapter 12. And this may not be working, so can you guys bring that up in the back? There we go. It says, the Lord sent Nathan to David, and when he came to him, he said, there were 2 men in a certain town. So he's telling him a story. One was rich, the other was poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb that he had bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. And now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man, he refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him, and instead he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man, and he prepared it for the one who had come to him. In other words, he slaughtered the lamb, killed it. David, when he heard the story, burned with anger against the man, and he said to Nathan, as surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this must die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and had no pity. And then Nathan the prophet said to David, say it with me, you are the man. That's you, buddy. This guy who's a man after God's own heart, this guy who seems to be a righteous and mighty and great king, proves in a very short order that he's not so great and not so mighty and certainly not so righteous. And he's really no different than anybody else, and I think you know this, and you didn't need that story to reveal this to you, but here's the truth I think we all need to know. You can look righteous and still be a mess. Come on, anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay, you're not with me on this, so we're going to have to work a little bit together here. You can look really good and righteous and still be a mess. Come on, is that true? It is true. You know it is. So my background, I've talked about this for those of you who've been around, but I was raised in church. We went to the First Baptist Church in the town that I was born and raised in, and it would not be unreasonable to say that we were there multiple times every week. We were very faithful. Mom was a Sunday school teacher. My dad was a deacon. He was an usher, and we were very involved, and we were there for most of the services that they had. And it's an interesting thing because I owe so much to that church. Honestly, I really do. I became a follower of Jesus at that church, and I learned things that I've brought with me in my life to this day, all these years later, and I'm so grateful for that church. It really did have a profound positive impact on my life. But I did notice some things there that were a little bit troubling at times. Now, maybe some of you will be able to resonate with what I'm saying when I tell you this, but one of the things that I noticed was, and really, originally, I only noticed this, I thought it was only true for the Arnett family, but what I noticed is that the Arnetts, anyhow, I couldn't speak for the other families, but the Arnetts seemed to be different at church than they were at home. Anybody ever had that experience? And so when we got ready to go to church, I mean, back then, of course, it isn't like today where everybody dresses like a bunch of slobs and we all just come in, you know. Back then there was kind of like an unwritten, dress code and everybody dressed nice. So we'd put on our good clothes and then we would put on what I called the church affect and we would go to church. And we looked good and we acted good. And this was very important. This was particularly important to my father for some reason. I'm not sure why. But we sat in the same pew. I called it the Arnett pew. Every week we sat in that pew. We hadn't bought it, but we just used, just like some of you, if someone sits in your seat and you come in late and someone's there, you just walk up by them and look at them like you. Well, we had that pew, and every week, of course, we'd be sitting there. It was very important for my dad that we all look good. And so, of course, I'm a kid, so kids are going to move around, and I'd lean forward or slouch or something like that. And my dad, when he saw that, he would very subtly, he would just reach over, and he would pinch me hard. And I mean, it'd be like, and I'd look up at him, and he'd just look at me like this, and he'd go, just push his shoulders back, like, sit up, don't slouch, don't fiddle. And so I'd sit up and not slouch and not fiddle, and then 2 minutes later, I'd hear this very soft, and I would look over, and my dad was asleep with his shoulders back. It was actually quite the gift. But it was so important that we look good. We had to look good. And then after the service, we'd get up and we'd smile and we'd shake hands with people and go past the pastor on the way out and shake his hand and tell him what a good message it was. And then we'd go out and then we would get in the car. And it was like something mystical happened in the car. And we became the real Arnetts. And suddenly we're bickering and fighting and arguing. Now, this isn't every time, all the time, but it was amazing how much of the time it was. And we're mad at each other. Mom and Dad are not talking to each other, or they are talking and they're not talking nice. And all this is going on. And we ride home with all this bickering and fighting. And then we get to our house and tumble out of the car with angry faces or resentfulness or whatever it is, all this stuff. And then there were the neighbors to the south of us. They were heathens. They did not go to church. And they might be out raking their lawn. And I'm sure, I don't know for sure, but I think every time they were out and they saw the Arnetts come home from church, and we'd get out and like that, and just like a bunch of animals coming out of a cage or something. I don't know. I mean, they're raking their lawn, and I'm sure they were reminded one more time why they never wanted to go to church. If that's what it does for you, what the heck? But we were never like that at church. We never did that at church. We looked good. It was absolutely, not at church did we look bad. We were a mess at home, but not at church. Never at church. We had stars in our Bibles from memorizing verses. We knew how to talk the lingo, and we knew we needed Jesus in our hearts, and we were in that camp, thank God, not like those horrible Catholics, that don't really know the truth. And for those of you who are Catholic right now going, what? I'm married a Catholic, all right? So I'm all in on Catholics and everything. I'm really raking on the Baptists at that point, not really the Catholics. And I'm just saying it was kind of like the way we were. And first I thought it was just our family. But as I made friends with people at church, then I'd go stay the night at their house and I'd realize, oh, these people are a mess too. These people, it's like we'd go to church and we'd be this thing that looked so good, and then we'd leave, and it was not reality. And there was so much of that. And because of that, in fact, let me just ask, how many of you would say, and I know I'm being dramatic here, and it wasn't our family wasn't always just piling out of the car, yelling and screaming and all that. It happened way more than you might think, but it wasn't all the time. But let me just ask, how many of you felt like you had that kind of an experience if you had a childhood church experience? Would you just let me know? There's a lot of you who would say, yeah, I saw that. It's like, and I'm not criticizing the people or my family or anything. It's just the way it was. It's crazy. And I saw that it wasn't just us. It was like everybody. And you get a bad taste in your mouth. And of course, this is why many people have left the church. Not because of Jesus, not because of the doctrine of the church. They left the church because of the church people. Because what they saw was like this absolute hypocrisy. They were a mess, but they acted like everything was fine and okay. And again, I know this, you might be, where are you going with this? This sounds a little depressing and all that. But I think it points out something really critical, and I think we need to be reminded of this. And that is that the best of us in this church family, of all the people that go to this church, thousands of people at TVC, the best of us are still, on a fairly regular basis, a mess. And all the people said, it's kind of pathetic. Somebody on staff said, I've never been to a church where I've been told as much as I have at TVC, you're a mess. But see, to me, it's important because I think it's truth that we cannot forget. It's just we are messy. Not all the time, but often. Folks, look, just accept this as reality. You go to a church somewhere, this church, any church, it doesn't matter to me, whatever church it is. You go to a church, you walk in, you're visiting, you've never been there before, and you get, somebody sees you. Maybe it's not at the front doors. Maybe you come through and somebody sees you and they shake your hand and say, oh, I'm glad to have you here. And what you don't know about them, they just look like friendliest, nicest person, is that maybe they were up half the night looking at pornography that degrades women. And you turn over and somebody else says, hey, how you doing? And they shake your hand. So glad. Do you go to church? We'd love to have you. And what you don't know about that person is that in the last week, that person went off into a rage, shouting obscenities at their husband or their wife or their children or whatever. And somebody else that smiles at you from a distance, they're struggling with an opiate addiction where it started with some pain they had, but now, they find themselves misusing that drug and they're getting sucked deeper and deeper into it. And you go, Jeff, that's horrible. That's not really possible. It's not true. But it is far more true than you think. Of course, we really don't want them to tell us about that, all right? Let's just be honest. You don't want to visit a church when you walk in, the guy at the door greets you, shakes your hand, says, so glad you're here, good morning. I know I look tired, but I was up half the night looking at porn, but we're glad you're here. You'd be like, oh, I want nothing to do with this church. But you think it's not true? I'm not saying it's true about everybody all the time. I'm just saying you really think that isn't the case? You really think that churches aren't full of broken people? They're absolutely full of people that are trying to figure things out, trying to work things out. And too often what happens is we try to fake it instead of grow. And you ask the question, I know some of you are legitimately saying, well, if that's the way church is, I mean, if that's the people that are friendly and they're shaking your hand and they're yelling at their spouses and they're doing these terrible things, if that's the way it is there any reason to even bother with God and the church? Does it even mean anything? Does it even do any good in anybody's life? And the answer to that question is yes and no. Now I sound like a politician, don't I? Well, that's appropriate this time of year. But I really think that. Let's just talk about this. Yes, I would say that there are hundreds and hundreds of people in this church who, if given the opportunity, could stand up in front of a group and say, let me tell you how much God's done in my life. Let me tell you how much difference God and being a part of a church family has made in my life. I went from here, and I was a wreck, and I saw God move and work and move and bring me to this, and I am now here. And in between here and here has been some amazing things, and I've seen God work in my life, and the church has made a difference and helped me and encouraged me and kept me on the right track, and I so value that. Now, what they might not say is that here is a long way from where they know they want to be, and there's still so much that has to happen. But yes, God and His church family do make a difference, and they are important. And at the same time, sometimes, no. It doesn't seem to make a difference. Now, I don't fully understand this one, but it is my observation that for some people, they can sit in church for decades and they stay the same infantile human being that they've been, and you would think they would become maturing, spiritually growing, developing spiritual adults, but they never change. It's like somewhere between the way they act when they're in church and everything else in life, it's like it doesn't penetrate, it doesn't get in, something is not working. It's not right. And don't kid yourself, this is actually the truth, even though they look good. Jesus talked about people like that, quoting Isaiah. He said, these people honor me with their what? With their lips. In other words, their affect is great. But he said, inside, their hearts, they're far from me. They look good. They come in, they joke, they laugh, they do the church thing well. They give the impression of spiritualness, but it's not there. It's like they have an appearance, an outward appearance of connection with God, but inside. And as I said, I can't even I don't even fully understand how that can be, but it's true. I mean, think about it. Judas, oh my gosh, he was invited in by Jesus to be one of the 12 disciples who traveled with him over 3 years and saw the supernatural, the miraculous, and heard the amazing teaching of God over and over and over again. He traveled with him. He lived with Jesus. And yet you know his story. And you know that even during that time, he was so subtle, he may have looked good that nobody noticed, but he was actually stealing from the ministry finances. Jesus knew it. But apparently nobody else did. Somehow it was like he had the appearance of looking like a good Christian, but it did not go inside. It did not penetrate. Emotionally, at a heart level, he was sick. So the obvious question to me is really, how do we keep that from happening in our life? How do I not be Judas? I don't want to be Judas. Anybody with me on that? I don't want to just go through the motions and just be a person that goes to church. And even as a pastor, I think you can do this kind of thing. You can just look good. You look spiritual. You look like everything's together. But inside, you are not growing. You're not becoming whom God has called you to be. And you don't have to follow Jesus. Nobody's forcing you to do that. And if you don't, and you come to TVC, you're welcome and loved here. You have to figure all that stuff out. But I can tell you, if you make that choice, Scripture is very clear that you need to be thoughtful about your spiritual life, because if you are not, you will become a shell. A shell. You look good on the outside, but you are empty of any depth, of any growth, of any maturity. And sadly, I would say that I see that happen in so many people's lives. It's like they say they believe in God, they say they're followers of Jesus, but there's nothing changing. There's nothing really going on. And you want to see people growing, but so often I think it really isn't happening. So let me just time out. Let me just ask you, do you think you're growing inside? Don't answer out loud. And this is not you thinking about the person next to you. I'm asking you, do you think you are growing inside? I think it's a fair question. I think it's a legitimate question to ask. And really, it's at the core of what we're going to be talking about in this series that we're calling Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. See, because here's the deal. Here's the deal. We all want to be spiritually mature. Everybody would agree if I were to say, if you're a follower of Jesus, everybody would say, yeah, I want to be spiritually mature, but it's impossible while you remain emotionally immature. You may want to grow up spiritually. You may want to grow, be more about what God wants, but it's impossible if you are not growing inside. And here's what you need to understand about growing. Growing is not something that happens on the horizontal. It always happens on an angle. And you are either, listen, this is very important for you to understand. Don't miss this. You are either growing up or you're growing back, down. You can't just build a little thing here and say, well, right now I'm just hanging out. Okay, this is what I'm doing. No, you're on an incline and you're either going up, you're growing, or you're going backwards. So let me just ask again, this is it. Are you growing spiritually and emotionally on the inside? What do you think? See, this is my deep concern that this does not happen in too many of our lives. Are you going to the next level in your God connection? We're all at different places. It doesn't matter where you're at on the incline, but are you going up? Are you growing? Are you becoming what God has called you to be? And here's what I can tell you. If you're going to do it, this is the truth about it. It's going to be work. And I just think a lot of us, we understand the importance of working at our vocation. We understand the importance of working on the stuff we have with our homes or our properties or our hobbies or whatever it is. But I think sometimes we don't realize the level, the importance of growing inside and how much work it actually is. It's actually not easy. In fact, the truth is, many of us, this is what we want when it comes to growing up spiritually is we just want like an instant miracle. We'll say to somebody, would you just pray for me that I'd stop being such a jerk? And while I'm sure maybe that's a good thing to pray, it almost never is like God goes, oh, sure, pixie dust over your head, boom, you're a sweetheart. It doesn't work that way. It is actually almost always the result of painful struggle and work on your part. If you're going to grow, if you're going to become what God calls you to be, what you can be, it is the result of you making a decision that I am not going to settle in and I am going to work. I'm going to work at growing. I'm going to do this stuff. And the growth comes slowly, gradually, the result of an increase of courage, of love, of understanding and knowledge. It's the result of things that often we go through that we would rather not go through, that we'd like to run from. But instead of zoning out and medicating and just going, I don't want anything to do with that, we face into it and we grow. And really, that's what this series challenge is going to be. And it's so ironic because, you think about this, so much of what grows us is stuff that we don't want. You don't realize how good this preaching really is right now, all right? So much of what grows us is the very stuff we do not want. It is the stuff we just try to pray away and act like it's not there or ignore or medicate ourselves and just go play video games or whatever it is and try to ignore it. But that's where growth comes. I've shared this scripture many times, but Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. It's a fascinating thing when you think about how it works. When you take a whetstone to a knife blade. What you do is you rub it back and forth is you create, can anybody tell me? Friction. You create friction, and that friction creates what? Heat. And there's heat and there's friction there, and it's rough and it's difficult. And if that knife had nerve endings in the end of it, it would be screaming in pain. It hurts because it's rubbing off the burrs. It's pushing off the dullness. It's bringing it to a sharper edge. And it would not want that. It would run from that. And that is exactly what the Bible says. As iron sharpens iron, in other words, through the friction, through the difficulty in life with working with other people, that's where sharpness comes. That's where we grow. We sharpen one another. So, over the next 2 months, we are going to look, this is a 9-week series, we're going to look at things that speak to where we're at inside. And I'm going to do my best to try to provoke and challenge you, and we're going to base this loosely on a book that is of the same title as the series, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. I will tell you, this book by Peter Scazzero has had just a great impact on my life and other materials that he's written. Actually, this is also connected to a course, and I hope at all of our campuses to have it. Right now, Delton, I think this week is starting the first of, so Delton's leading the way for us, yay. But I hope to have this course at all of our campuses eventually. But what I will tell you is we're going to be basing the series loosely, again, around this book. And if you would like to follow along in the book, we have them available. Just go out to the Next Step area and ask them about it, and we would be glad. You can purchase that book out there if you would like it, if you're interested. But I'm going to steal a lot of information, by the way, with permission from this material, because I think it's so important. You want to know what I fear? I fear that we are, and I say we because I see this tendency in my own life, this propensity. I think that often, instead of us really choosing to face into the pain and grow, we just medicate. You know, we go on a shopping spree, or we eat dessert, or we, start gaming, and, whatever it is we do. And I worry about us, because we've never been more affluent materially. But you know what research is telling us over and over again? We are more depressed and more unhappy than they've seen in forever. And yet we're surrounded by affluence. And we eat out at different places all the time. We have all this stuff. And I contend it is because we have become a little bit lazy about choosing to grow up. Because that's what makes all the difference. Now, in the book, Scazzero talks about 10 different things, and we're going to address these. I'm just going to run through them real quickly because we're going to talk about them in the weeks to come, but define spiritually unhealthy people. For example, he talks about the idea of using God to run from God. So we go to church and we act like we're doing the right things, but we're not actually running in God's direction, we're running away. He talks about ignoring on the inside, and we're going to talk about this next weekend, really powerful. Anger and sadness and fear, we just kind of put a lid on it, we ignore it, we turn away. He talks about dying to the wrong things. Jesus says, take up your cross and follow me. We have to die to ourselves, but too often we're dying to the wrong things. He talks about denying the impact of the past, and that's a couple weeks down the road, and that one's really important, talking about the connections between our family of origin and our lives today and how we address those. He talks about dividing life into secular and sacred compartments. The Arnetts on Sunday morning at church and the Arnetts the rest of the time. This is a sign of spiritual immaturity. He talks about doing for God instead of being with God. And many people feel like, well, I go to church once in a while and occasionally I serve people, and they're not connected with God. There's no God connection. He talks about spiritualizing away conflict. Instead of facing into it and dealing with it and growing, we just spiritualize it away. He talks about covering over our brokenness or our weakness or our failures, which is tragically so common among Christians. He talks about living without limits, and we'll hit on that, such an important thing. And he talks about the fact that we end up often avoiding our own immaturity by judging other people's spiritual journeys. And these are things that we all struggle with, and they're indicative of an unhealthy spiritual life. And as I said, we'll be talking about them in the weeks to come. And I'm just going to say this, and I'm not going to belabor it, but would you consider, just think about it. Would you consider just saying, I'm going to come to every single one of this series unless some emergency happens. I'm just going to be there. I know for many of us, it's like we just wait to see how we're doing on Sunday morning. Do I feel tired? Do I feel happy? Do I feel like going to church? Do I not? And then we base it on that. I'm asking you to consider, just do it. Just go. And make a commitment to it. And of course, you don't have to, but I would like to challenge you on that because I think we need church. You know I'm a proponent of church. I think we need it in our lives. And I think this series can be helpful to us if we choose to lean into it. And then I'll say this and I'll be done. I think watching online, no offense to all of you sitting at home in your underwear right now watching online, but I think watching online is fine for a very short term. I do not think it is healthy in a long distance type of thing. And here's why. There is a dynamic that can only be experienced and the sense of God's presence that comes when we gather together with a mutual purpose in church and we worship together. Come on, you know that's true, right? And so I think we need that in our lives. So, all right, I said it, I'm done there. My hope is that as we go through this series, as we come to that place, as we, near the end of it, that it's not just that we're feeling like, I feel better about myself, but that we're actually maturing. We're actually growing. Because this is about growth. And I guess if I could give you two words that I would say, if you could just hear these things this weekend as I kind of introduce the series, is you could just understand, this is so important that these are the two words, don't settle. Don't settle for less than growth in your life. This is, and I know I'm sounding a little bit dark when I say this, but I fear that this is culturally kind of become acceptable, that we just settle in and we do the best to enjoy all the affluence we can, but when it comes to what's happening inside of us, we settle for it just being a mess and think, well, that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. Don't settle for that. Don't. Don't run from or medicate or turn away and ignore the things that are struggles in your life. Face into them and let them help you move up the incline of growth and become a person who's stronger on the inside. Listen, I know some of you right now, you're in a relationship or you're in a situation at work or you're in something at school or with family or whatever it is, and all you can think of is, I want out of this, I want out of this, I want out of this. And you can get out of it. You can run from it. And I understand how you feel. Trust me. But I will say to you that you can be pretty certain that what you won't get when you run is the growth that was meant to happen in your life. You need to know I'm preaching to me. You want to know the truth? I've been in a place in my life where I've never felt more like running from some stuff than I've ever felt. That is the truth about where I'm at in my life. And you're wondering, what's happening? Is he leaving his wife? No. I'm going to keep putting up with her. No, I'm just joking. All right. But you have stuff in your life. I have stuff in my life. And I know exactly what it feels like to say, all I want to do is run. Oh, I want out. But I think we so often miss what God has in store if we stay in and we grow. Don't settle. Don't settle, because what God calls, what we're destined for as followers of Jesus is growth, moving, becoming more. I love the scripture in 2 Corinthians 3:18. It says, and we all who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory, we're being transformed into his image. Look at these next words, with ever increasing glory. That's what we should look like, ever increasing glory. I love how the Message paraphrase says the same verse. It says, our lives gradually becoming brighter and more beautiful as God enters our lives and as we become like him. Brighter. Yes. More beautiful. Is that what you're becoming on the inside? Brighter, more beautiful? Don't settle for that to not be the case. And it may hurt and it may be difficult, but push through on that. Push yourself to grow. Do things that are uncomfortable. So this is why every year we invite our church family to join with the larger church world, and during the season of Lent, which is Ash Wednesday through Easter week, which is a 6-week period, during that season, to do what the larger church, in many cases, many people have done, and that is to fast something. Now, this year, Lent starts February 26th, so it's not that far away. On February 26th, you would start, and you would say no to something. You would fast something. And the idea behind it is that what you're doing is you're pushing yourself, you're growing yourself. And I don't know, maybe you think I'm just being whiny this weekend, but I think nobody's ever needed it as much as we need it. There's so much I can say yes to, and mostly I just do. Would you like some more dessert? Yes. Would you like this? Yes. Would you like a raise? Yes. Would you like whatever, time off, this thing, that thing? Yes, yes, we say yes all the time. And our culture tells us we should be saying yes. And it's healthy for us to speak up to ourselves and say, and every good parent knows this, every parent knows this, that we should say to ourselves sometimes what? No. No. So at TVC, we do it a little differently because we kind of add to it. We call it fast forward. And the idea behind fast forward is that you don't just say a no to something, but you say a yes to something. And it can be all kinds of things, but you say yes. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to invite the ushers to hand out some cards right now. Would you guys just bring those up and hand them out? And everybody just take one. You don't have to do anything with it. Just take it. And if you want to leave it on your chair after you leave, or you want to wad it up and throw it away in anger, do that. But if you would like to join us, please feel free to be a part of that. And yeah, come right on up and pass them out. This section's kind of looking like what happened here. All right, there we go. We got it going. And so just take a look at them and see. So there's suggestions or ideas on there on what you say yes to, and suggestions and ideas on what you say no to. And the idea behind it is that that's what you do. You choose a no and you choose a yes. So I'll tell you what I'm doing this year. I'm saying no again this year to desserts. Now, I know some of you are going, because some of you are like crazy, healthy, freakish people, and you don't eat sugar and all that stuff. But I can tell you that I've done no desserts now for quite a number of years. And when I get close to Easter every year, I'm like, I ain't doing this next year. I am not doing this next year. Is there anybody like me? Anybody love desserts in here at all? And I don't know what it is with me, but it feels like you get to the end of a good meal and it just needs something with sugar in it to make it perfect. And so it's a struggle for me. And that's why, even though I say at the end of it, I'm not doing it again, as it comes up, I go, that's what I need. I need to be saying no. And then my yes this year is something, and this is what we hope people will do, something that will cause them to draw their relationship tighter in with God. And so I'm going to choose 5 to 10 minutes, afternoon, mid-afternoon, early evening, where I just stop with God. I'm very diligent at taking time in the morning, but sometimes in the rest of the day, I haven't done that. So that's what, yours is going to be different, no doubt. What will your yes be, and what will your no be? One of the yeses that you might consider is a devotional that goes along with the series that we're doing. Actually, this is material that goes with the emotionally healthy spirituality thing. We have this book day by day, and we have it available out there. It's 40-day devotional. I think it's been amazing. And let me just say this, because I've advertised now for books twice. We don't make anything. We actually lose money every time we do stuff like this, all right? I'm not trying to push books so that, I'm not like, you can buy my book and I'll write in the cover. I don't have a book. These things are there for you if you would like them. But the whole idea is just don't settle. And if you would like some support in this during the season of Lent, we'll actually do like a fast. Let's put that up on the screen so everybody can see it there, if they can, yeah. Well, or something. Yeah, there you go. Good. So if you just text, it's just as one word. It'll autocorrect to 2 words, so you have to make sure that's just one word to 77948, fast forward. And then you'll get, just during the season of Lent, you'll get a couple texts. Hundreds of people do this when we offer it. And so if you'd like it, great. If you wouldn't, that's fine too. It's really no big deal. Some of you may have heard me a few weeks back. I was talking about how in the last couple months, I told Ann one day, I just said, I don't want to be an ornery old buzzard. I don't. Some of you think it's too late, Well, actually, the whole staff, now they just walk around the office going, ah, ah. I don't know if buzzards make that sound or not, but I told her, I said, I don't want to be an ornery old buzzard. I want to be a tender-hearted old guy. I want there to be a sweetness in the room when I'm there. I want that. It was so funny after I shared that weekend. My granddaughter Naomi came to me and she said, Grandpa, I know what you are. I said, what am I? I had no idea what she was going to say. She said, you're a tender-hearted old buzzard. I guess I actually would think that's a pretty good thing. But I will tell you, I default to ornery old buzzard. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You don't have to raise your hand. Just frown at me and I'll know, all right? So a couple weeks ago, I went to my granddaughter's swim meet in Otsego. Have you ever been to a swim meet? Have you ever been to a swim meet? I can describe it for you if you've not been to a swim meet. It's like a 2-hour visit to hell. It is, you're sitting up in the balcony, and it is so hot and so muggy, and you are sweating, and whoever designs the balconies for these places must work the rest of their time in torture chambers because it's very uncomfortable. And then and you're there for 2 hours to watch maybe 2 minutes of your, kids or grandkids or whatever swim, and everybody's screaming and shouting, and the acoustics are horrible, and it's so noisy, and it's like, oh my gosh. And so I'm sitting there, this is on a Saturday morning, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, this is so terrible. I leaned down to my son-in-law, Adam, and I just said, I don't want to be a grumpy old buzzard, but this is pushing all my grumpy old buzzard buttons. And he looked up at me and said, and it's pushing all my grumpy young buzzard buttons too. He fully agreed with me. But that is life. It's filled with those moments. It's filled with those things. It's filled with all kinds of experiences that are difficult and painful and hard to sustain. And in those, we have a choice. Do we grow or do we medicate and ignore? But where you start is you start with your connection with God. Because otherwise, all this doesn't really mean much. It starts with your connection with Jesus. And maybe you've never made that connection. Maybe you have, but you've wandered away from God. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask, would you all just bow your heads and close your eyes just for a moment? And we're going to pray in just a moment and come back to worship. But just right now, while your heads are bowed and your eyes are closed, if you're here and you've never made the decision to follow Christ, or you're here and you have, but you've wandered away from that and you feel like you need to get right with God, I won't make you stand up. I won't bring you to the front. We won't tackle you on the way out. But if that's you, and you want to pray right now and recommit or give your life to Christ to follow Him, would you just lift your hand up and make eye contact with me wherever you're seated? If that's you, just, okay, awesome, awesome. If that's you, just lift your hand up and say, that's me. I need to make things right with God. Who else? Who else, if that's you? All right, buddy, awesome. Just lift your hand up. Okay, sir, that's great. If that's you, wave it at me if I haven't seen you, haven't acknowledged you. Heads bowed, eyes closed. This is just between God and those of us who have our eyes open, me and whoever lifts their hand. Anybody else, lift your hand up high if that's you. Don't miss this opportunity if God's speaking to you. I want to change. I want to give my life to Christ. Anyone else? While heads are bowed and eyes are closed, those of you who lifted your hands, this is something you do. Maybe you just were scared to death to lift your hand, but you want to do it. You still can. You just come to God and say, Jesus, I don't even understand it all, but I believe. I believe you are. I sense you speaking into my life right now. Just say to Him, I believe in you, Jesus. And then tell Him, I'm asking you to come in and take charge of my life. Just pray that. I ask you to come in and take charge of my life. I give you my heart. Just tell Him, I give you my heart. And if you prayed that, if you said, I give you my heart, then just pray something like this, and I will seek to follow you. This is not just a thing in a moment. I am going to come after you. I'm going to grow in you. I have giving you my heart. Help me, God, to know you better. Just in your own words, pray that. Help me to know you better. I'm going to follow after you. And for every person who lifted their hands, every person who prayed that prayer, now, God, we pray your hand on them, that may they be aware of you. And in the days and weeks to come, the growth that comes from that, move in their lives and in their hearts. And we trust you to do that. And all of us together are so thankful for people who make decisions for you. And we say, yay, God, for people who make decisions for Christ. Yay, God, it's an awesome thing.
Thank you for listening to the Thornapple Valley Church podcast. If you found this message encouraging, we invite you to share it. For more information, visit tvcweb.com.